Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 8 of the BadMotoGP-Show. We're here to review the Portuguese GP, which took place yesterday, and it was the first race of the season, and there's already so much to discuss. A lot of memes have been made, a lot of people were angry in the comments, but yeah, we're here to discuss all the action, so Keelin, you enjoyed the races.
I did indeed, Leo. Hello, everybody. It's good to be back again. Portuguese Grand Prix. We are here for the feedback. We are here to discuss it, and I'm looking forward to get into it. We had a near riot in Portugal. We had chaos in the classes, and all around, it was just a great race.
Yeah, it was great that MotoGP was back. The feeling, I just don't get the same feeling with World Superbike. Maybe it will come over time, but it's great to have MotoGP back. And usually I would like to start with the race winner, Pecco Bagnaia, but there isn't much to discuss. He was better than everybody, faster than everybody, and did everything right on this weekend. But we will get into this later. And obviously there's this big incident where everybody's losing their heads right now because Marc Marquez dive bombed into turn 3. Darren Binder couldn't have done it any better. So yeah, we are discussing the incident, then the injury that happened to Marc Marquez, and all of the aftermath. So yeah, let's start with the incident in itself. How did you view it, and what's your whole take on it?
Oh man, it was a mess. To be honest, there's not a whole lot I can pull out of the wreckage of what happened. Safe to say that Marc Marquez does Marc Marquez things. Takes it way too hard. Completely fucks up Miguel Oliveira's Grand Prix. And honestly, the only positive is that Miguel Oliveira didn't break his leg. We're lucky that he only had a couple of bruises and contusions on his leg as opposed to broken bones. But Marc Marquez very nearly didn't make it out alive. Portugal is not very happy with Marc Marquez. They don't love him normally anyway, but they have every reason to hate him now. You're a brave person if you're a Marc Marquez fan wearing Marc Marquez memorabilia in Portugal at this point. That is all I will say. Yeah, like it was a mess. It was just a complete another shambles. I mean, when Mark's acknowledging he was at fault, you know he messed up. And yeah, like you said, Darren Binder couldn't have done it any better if he'd have tried to kamikaze into the back of someone else's bike. Marc Marquez messes it up for himself, messes it up for Miguel Oliveira, and yeah, old school Mark is back.
Yeah, the only thing which was better about the Marc Marquez incident than the Darren Binder incident 2 years ago was that Darren Binder influenced the championship with that and Marc Marquez didn't. So
Who's to say he won't by the end of the
yeah,
season?
could be, could be. But honestly, I don't see neither Jorge Martin nor Miguel Oliveira as a championship contender. And with the Honda, I don't see Marc Marquez as a championship contender as well. And especially with the injury, this makes life too difficult. But we are not here to discuss this. We are here to discuss the spicy stuff. And what bumps me out the most about it is that Marc Marquez is now 30 years old. It's his 11th season in the MotoGP right now, if I'm not mistaken. He had his rookie season in 2013, and he has a lot of races. And if it wasn't for Valentino Rossi, he would be the greatest rider of the modern era, no question about it. He has such an incredible talent, and this aggressiveness served him pretty well over the course of his career. But there were always incidences more towards the early parts of his career. And
Mm-hmm.
now, after the injury, those incidents tend to occur more often. But yeah, what bums me out the most about it is that he should know better. He should know better because he is no rookie anymore. He's not in Moto 3. He's not in Moto 2. He had plenty of time to learn all of this stuff. And to me, it comes down to he is overriding the bike so damn hard that it's not safe in this instance. So yeah, it reminded me a little bit of Jorge Lorenzo in 2019 when he dived into turn 10, I believe, in Catalonia and wiped Vinales, Dovizioso, and Rossi out.
Mm-hmm.
And he was overriding the bike as well. And that's what happened. So it bums me out because Marc Marquez is such an incredible rider. He is such an experienced rider. He should know better.
Yeah, I mean, there's not much more to say beyond that. There really isn't. He should be grown up enough to know not to do this kind of thing. And look, nobody has a problem. I certainly don't have a problem with Marc Marquez overriding the bike. The bike's basically a garbage can on two wheels. That's not a shock to anybody. The problem comes when you are affecting other riders' races and you affect other riders' health negatively. And this is what Mark is doing. I mean, on the opening lap, he nearly bended into the side of someone else. And then the lap after that, you completely take out Miguel Oliveira, and you're very lucky you don't take out Jorge Martin behind you as well. Shout out Jorge Martin. He did very well to stay in the race, actually, after that. But look, at the end of the day, Mark really needs to grow up now. We talked about this last season. This shit is getting old now. I'm tired of talking about Marc Marquez and his fuck ups affecting everybody else because that's what it is. And look, I think we're going to get onto this next, but the fact that there's a real possibility he might not even have to serve his punishment is just riling fans left, right, and center. If you want to take us into that, where I'm totally cool to discuss that. But to talk about the incident itself, I mean, it's just a joke. It really is. From a rider who would be the best of the modern era, if not for Valentino, there's no excuse.
Yeah, and I I always think about Fabio when it comes to overriding a bike because what he's doing on Yamaha, especially over the last two seasons, has been nothing else but incredible. And we've always been praising Fabio for riding on this thin line where it's usually not too much. He had some instances last season where it was too much, but I mean, the worst that happened was that Aleix Espargaro finished P4 in Assen. But it's not the problem that those things happen. It's the frequency of those incidents. And as we said, he should know better. He is a very experienced rider. And turn three is a very, very difficult corner. Marco Bezzecchi talked about this because you have to brake very, very precise to make the corner. And you're coming out of two fast right hand corners, which is the first and the second corner. And it's when you're in a pack, you can't allow yourself to make mistakes, and when you just can't run wide. It's when you're in qualifying, you can brake as late as you want because you just can run wide. Or in the first lap, he got away with it because he just avoided the other riders. But if Jorge Martin went wide, this could have went well, but Jorge Martin closed the door on him, and then everything was lost. And yeah, he should know much, much better.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's the reality is that it's amateurish. It really is. In order to try and get to the corner, you don't overshoot it and try and pump the brake at the last second. Of course, that's going to happen. Anybody could see with two working eyes what was going to happen there, and yet he did it anyway. And the thing with Mark, I'm sure, is that look. Marc Marquez being healthy is brilliant for MotoGP. Whether you're a fan of him, whether you're not, the sport is in a difficult position right now ever since Valentino retired in terms of popularity, in terms of numbers. Marc Marquez is good for the championship when he's healthy because he brings numbers. I don't need to go into all of that. People know exactly why. But Mark is starting to skate on very thin ice now, probably with every other team and every other rider, because they are fed up of their riders being put at risk because of him. And one day somebody's going to snap and somebody is going to have enough of Marc Marquez and Honda allowing him to get away with this. I know Alicia Spargo, when he was doing his media yesterday, he's been the most vocal out of everybody in the grid in demanding a race ban for Mark. And I'm on Alicia Spargo's side on this. The warnings and the talkings to with Mark haven't worked. So now we have to take this to the next step. We have to start imposing bans on Mark until he realizes that he can't get away with it. And it's only going to hurt the riders and it's only going to hurt the sport. And we've had all these other debates with sprint races and more racing, and this being the busiest calendar we've ever had. We don't need a menace on the track as well. You know, we need riders who are capable of riding to the standard. And if Mark can't, then punishment has to be levied. There's no other option.
I can't remember what punishment Darren Binder got in 2021 after he wiped out Fabio, but yeah, what I was gonna say is that a lot of people compared this incident to Luca Marini. And to me, those are two totally different incidents because Luca Marini saw a gap there because Enea Bastianini went a little bit wide and lost the front. In a sprint race where every second counts, you can't allow yourself to hold back and say, okay, I will get him in 2 laps, because then effectively the race for you could be over if the other guys are pulling away, and you have to go for it in a sprint race. And it was very unfortunate. We saw this a lot of times where it didn't result in an injury, and it's pretty sad to see that Enea Bastianini effectively is out of the title run right now. But it's not comparable with the Marc Marquez situation, because Luca Marini lost the front. Shit happened in a sprint race. It was lap 1, 2, or whatever. It was pretty early. And yeah, Mark went. He just should have braked a little bit earlier and then saved it for another lap, because he was in there. He was doing a good job, and he ruined Miguel Oliveira's race. He ruined a little bit of his championship. I mean, it's still possible, but not very likely that he can beat Pecco Bagnaia if he misses 2 races. But yeah, he injured his hand as well, because I mean, we are very lucky that Miguel Oliveira didn't get hurt, or he got hurt, but he wasn't injured. And the same appears to be with Jorge Martin. He has some kind of a foot injury, but apparently nothing too bad. And Marc Marquez took took away the worst injury of those 3, I would assume. And obviously, nobody wishes any harm on Marc Marquez or every other rider. You know, like you said, we want him to be on track because it's good for the sport. The excitement he provided in the sprint race and the qualifying was amazing. So nobody wants him to see him injured. But if you dive bomb like this into a corner, this is the stuff that could happen, and you have to deal with the consequences now. And yeah, hopefully he gets back soon, and he will hopefully serve his penalty, because this, in my opinion, is necessary. And yeah, but I guess we will see him again in Austin, and he will be fine. So it doesn't appear to be a big injury.
Yeah, you're right. It doesn't seem to be a severe injury in any way. I actually want to touch on a point you made, because you made a very great point about a lot of online criticism, and I did want to address this. There are a lot of people on Instagram, Twitter, all these platforms, who are basically trying to defend Marc Marquez by saying, well, if we're going to punish Mark, why aren't we punishing Luca Marini for what he did to Enea Bastianini? Those two incidents are nowhere near comparable. Like you said, Leo, and you made an excellent point. Luca Marini's crash was excusable. It was a sprint race. Nobody knew what they were doing. He thought he saw a gap and he went for it with good reason. I mean, Luca Marini is literally the most consistent rider on the grid. I don't think he DNF'd once last season. So for him to crash out is at least justifiable and excusable. To try and use that as a measuring stick against what Mark did is they're on two completely different levels. Don't compare them because they aren't comparable. One was a legitimate racing incident, one wasn't. That's all I want to say about that before we move on. But to anybody who's trying to make that comparison, just be clear, those two things are not the same.
And you have a totally different body of work. As we discussed earlier, Marc Marquez is an 8-time world champion. Luca Marini isn't. I think he should be held to a different standard, especially when it comes to his experience. And even if it wasn't Marc Marquez, those incidents wouldn't be the same, But
Yeah.
since it was Marc Marquez, and we hold him to a different standard, because he's obviously the best rider right now on the grid. He's the most accomplished and the second greatest rider of the modern MotoGP era. you could make an argument that he is the greatest MotoGP rider ever, and Valentino Rossi kind of had some early success on the 500s and on the Moto 3, not Moto 3, on the 125 and 250, but that's a whole different debate. But yeah, you could make an argument for that. And you can't say he's human on one side and he's superhuman on the other. You have to hold him to a different standard because he has so much experience. And Luca Marini doesn't. Luca Marini has the third season in MotoGP right now, and these things usually don't happen with Luca Marini, so everything's fine. What kind of bums me out is that Luca Marini didn't get a penalty for the incident, which when you give Joan Mir a penalty, in my opinion, those two incidents are very similar, and you could argue that Fabio Quartararo suffered way less than Enea Bastianini did. And therefore, I think that he should get a penalty for it, but he didn't. And what bums me out too is that when you make something worth a penalty in a sprint race, that you can serve it in the main race. Because as we discussed earlier, or on the last podcast, I believe, that a sprint race and a main race, they're not created equal. Therefore, I believe if you fuck up in the sprint race, you should serve the penalty in the next sprint race. If you fuck up in the main race, you should serve the penalty in the main race. And therefore, I think it was a little bit stupid to give Joan Mir the penalty for the main race, but that's a whole different issue. But yeah, I think if you want to punish Joan Mir and if you want to punish Marc Marquez, cool. I'm kind of with it with Joan Mir, even though I would lean towards racing incidents with him. But if you want to punish him, you have to punish Luca Marini too. And therefore, I understand a little bit of frustration. But on the other hand, you have a totally different body of work there from Marcus to Luca Marini and even to Joan Mir, because with those two, it usually doesn't happen.
Yeah, of course. And to touch on Joan Mir before we move on as well, with the Joan Mir incident in the sprint race, I compared to Fabio's incident with Aleix in Assen last year in that it was a fucking ridiculous move, but at least the other rider didn't crash out. The only person who lost out was the person who made the stupid move. That's why I am with you. I lean towards it being more a racing incident than punishable. Whereas if he'd have taken Fabio out, that's a different conversation. That's where you introduce a penalty if it has a tangibly negative impact on another rider. The problem is, and I fear we're going to have this issue again throughout this season, the issue that we are going to have is uniform judging from the safety stewards. If you're going to give one thing a penalty, give the comparable thing a penalty. If one's A and one's X, don't give A a penalty and then not give X a penalty. If it's A and B, give them both a penalty. If it's A and X, use your own judgment to know when to give a penalty and when not to. Marc Marquez, give him a penalty. Give him a severe penalty. Joan Mir, not the same thing. Not the same thing. Luca Marini, yes, it did affect another rider, but were there any mitigating factors? Was it fair to make the move? Yes. Now, I do think you give Luca Marini a punishment in that scenario, like you said, but it's much closer to Joan's than it is to Mark's. So you've got to create a scale and stick to that scale. Otherwise, you're just going to throw everything up the left again, give penalties where you don't need to, don't give penalties where you do need them, and you're going to mess up the grid again. So just please, Dorna, for once, just stick to a proper scale and just run with it throughout the season.
Yeah, unfortunately, you always have those people who give it 47, 46 to Chito Vera, you know? It's those things unfortunately happen. You have it in football with bad refereeing, you have it in
Ugh.
MMA, and you have it in motorsport. I mean, Formula One is a good example. They are a complete mess when it comes to penalties. MotoGP is a complete mess. I avoided it all winter to talk about it because I'm sick of it.
Yeah.
And here we are again, you know? But I think the double long lap is a fair penalty. I don't think you should ban him for a race because at the end of the day, he was in a racing incident where he just miscalculated everything and braked like 5 meters too late. And you can't do that, but I don't think it's a race ban.
Mm.
But yeah, that's my opinion. I think the double long leg is pretty fair. But Aleix, Jorge Martin, and Jack Miller have a different opinion on it. And before I come to this, I think he should serve the double long leg in the next main race he participates. The fact that he can get away with it when he doesn't race in Argentina is ridiculous, in my opinion, because therefore you don't penalize him at all. And yeah, but Aleix, Martin, and Miller, they thought that he deserves a race ban in the safety commission, and I would like to hear your opinion on it.
Well, I think what makes this interesting is, first of all, it's interesting to hear this opinion because I think hearing it from the horse's mouth, so to speak, has much more relevance than anything I'm gonna say. Because at the end of the day, the riders are the riders, and the riders are qualified to give these opinions. I'm not. Shock, I've never been on a MotoGP bike. Much as I would love to, I've never been on one. These guys race them week in, week out across different continents and different racetracks. I think they're more qualified to say when someone's dangerous, probably, than I am. And the thing is, as well, with the riders who've complained, Alicia Spargo and Jack Miller, they're generally pretty safe riders, so I tend to trust their word when it comes to it as well. Now, look, of course, there's manufacturers' rivalries. We're all going for the same trophy. I get there's a competitive advantage to be gained there. But at the end of the day, these guys share the track with Mark every single week, which means they have a better insight into this than anybody does. And if they say he's dangerous, then I agree with them. I mean, notwithstanding my own opinion, in which I think he's dangerous, if these guys are honest enough to go in front of everybody and say he's dangerous, he should be banned, I think it pays to listen to them at the end of the day, because if you can't trust a rider's opinion, whose opinion are you going to trust?
Yeah, but on the other hand, you had riders defending him. Apparently, Pecco Bagnaia, apparently Marco Bezzecchi, and even Miguel Oliveira defended him. And you get, when you have 22 riders or 20 riders in the room, you get 20 different opinions usually. So, as you said, there's a lot of competitive advantage to be gained or lost when it comes down to this. So it's difficult to get an unbiased opinion about it,
Yeah.
especially from Jorge Martin. He was involved in the incident. He was involved in the Silverstone incident last year or the year before, I believe.
Mm.
Whatever. But Mark wiped him out in Silverstone, and therefore, no, last year Mark was injured. He had the surgery. It must have been 2021 when he came back from his injury. But yeah, he was involved in it, and it feels like he's sick of his shit. And I mean, Jack Miller has done enough stupid shit with Joan Mir over the last couple of years. And Aleix is a pretty solid rider. I feel like I can't recall Aleix doing anything stupid in the last years.
Aside from celebrating too early, but I'm not going to hold that against him.
Yeah, that doesn't deserve a penalty. That's punishment enough. But yeah, I don't think you should ban him for a race. But I mean, effectively, he gets a race ban because he's not racing in Argentina, and therefore, yeah, what kind of bums me out with the double long lap that apparently he doesn't have to serve it, and I hope they change it because it's like you you going whatever 100 kilometers an hour too fast on the road, and then the police pulls you out, says, "Hey, you have to suspend your license," and then you say, "Okay, but I'm not. I'm in the hospital for a month. I don't need to. Don't need to take the punishment or whatever." But maybe that's not the best example. But you know what I'm trying to
No,
say.
no, it's
It's
actually a good example. It's like, say me and you, for example, and say we're on the Autobahn or a particular road, and I get pulled over by the police and they say, you were driving too fast, we're taking your license away from you for 1 week. And I say, okay, but I don't have to drive for a week. I'm injured. I can't drive. And then I end up not having to get my license taken away. That's unfair to you because we did the same thing and you're getting punished and I'm not. So it's not fair. This comes back to what I was just saying a minute ago. You have to keep this uniform. If a rider's done something stupid, not being able to race in the next race isn't punishment enough. They still did the stupid thing in the race before. I actually think it was Simon Patterson actually who put this on Twitter. I think he actually said that I think if Scott Redding or somebody comes back to MotoGP, they have a penalty they would have to serve in the next race. Shout out Simon Patterson. I can't remember the exact tweet, but I will pull it up later in the show and I'll see what exactly he was talking about. But there is something like that. Someone does have a penalty outstanding if they come back. But that's the point, if you do something stupid, the next race you're back, accept the punishment, we all move on. But allowing Mark a loophole out of it by not racing in the next race isn't punishing him at all. And all it's going to do is piss people off even more.
Yeah, it's like with Celestino Vietti. He didn't get to not have the penalty in the first race, even though it was not Qatar and it was Portimao, because they specifically phrased it this way. And now with Mark, they specifically phrased it that he has to serve it in the Argentina GP, whatever it's called. But yeah, there's another story, and you could look up the tweet while I'm telling the story, which is just a rumor. It's not confirmed or anything. Take it as that. I've heard things, and I would like to discuss this, which
Mm-hmm.
is that apparently some fans broke into his garage or his motorhome, some Portuguese fans, and were threatening him and whatever happened there. Apparently, police came and apparently everything went fine. Nobody was seriously hurt. Apparently, Mark was pushed, but yeah, nothing else. Again, it's not confirmed by a second source or whatever. I have no clue if this is true, but I would like to discuss it anyway because I think people always, in those incidents, forget that it's just a sport. It's not too important if Marc Marquez gets a penalty or not, because at the end of the day, my life goes on and nothing happens. Your life goes on, nothing happens. It's not like Putin invaded Ukraine there, those are serious issues, but to get crazy over a sport is a little bit ridiculous. People get your life together, accept it the way it is. It's basically, it comes down to just entertaining. It's an entertainment. And if you don't like the outcome of the entertainment, deal with it. But it's not like your life is affected by it and you need to take some stupid actions and try to serve justice to Miguel Oliveira or whatever.
Yeah.
It's like in 2015 when people broke into Marcus' house and were threatening him. This is ridiculous. It's a sport. Get over it. Sometimes shit does go your way. Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes things are unfair, but that's the way life is. So deal with it. It's ridiculous. Stop it.
Yeah, of course it is. Just a quick shout out to Simon Patterson again before we move on. He made a point. This is his tweet, direct quote. Weirdly, MotoGP didn't always work this way, where the punishment is specified to the race. So, point you were making earlier. And I think Hector Barbera still has a penalty to serve should he ever return. So, just a point that Leo was making there. Simon Patterson basically agreeing. On to this notion about Portuguese fans attacking or getting in behind and trying to attack Marc Marquez. Look, Leo's right. It's a sport at the end of the day. Marc Marquez is a human being. We're all human beings. None of us are perfect. And we all make mistakes at some times. Some of us make mistakes when we're out. Some of us are professional motorbike riders and we make mistakes on the track. We're all different, but we're all capable of making mistakes, okay? And like Leo said, it's a great point. It's a sport. Get over yourselves, okay? I get Miguel Oliveira's a national pride. He represents Portugal very proudly, and that's commendable to Portugal. But look, it's a sport, okay? Come on. Like as a football fan, I've never understood how people can take it so seriously that people will literally kill one another for supporting a different team or supporting something else. Like Leo said, there's bigger issues in the world than, whether one rider wins or one rider loses. There's wars, there's famine, there's this, there's that. There's a million other more important things going on in the world. It's entertainment. It's sport, Yes, should Marc Marquez be punished? Yes, he should. But should he be attacked by fans over it? No. Come on. I mean, and look, even to make it more, even to make it a little funnier, if we weren't going to riot after 2015, we're not going to riot now because that was probably the one time that we could have done something. But no, look, it's a sport. He made a mistake. Don't try and attack the guy with knives and pitchforks over it, okay, and try and burn him at the stake. It was a mistake, all right, and we move on. And to be fair, even though I'm a big Valentino Rossi fan, and I do occasionally drink the haterade when it comes to Marc Marquez, I've heard he's actually a really nice guy. He does a lot of stuff with charity, apparently, and again, I've never had the chance to go to the paddock. I'm hoping I will soon, though. Apparently he's really good with fans. He'll stay behind and sign autographs. He auctions off his stuff for charity most seasons as well, I'm led to understand. So look, try and see the human behind the helmet sometimes. Sometimes he acts like a helmet, but he's still a human being at the end of the day. Let's just leave it at that.
And to make a quick point, if there was indeed someday some kind of a hooligan fight where 100 Rossi fans fight against 100 Marcus fans, and I happen to be in the area, I would likely enjoy it, watching it, but I
Yeah.
wouldn't participate. But
Leo,
so,
join him with the MMA.
yeah, if we could, yeah, I mean, I wouldn't even do a one-to-one fight because I don't want to get brain damage. I mean, even I like to train martial arts, but I have no interest in fighting because
Mm.
there's no point. And if you talk about group fighting, I mean, you don't know what the fuck is happening there,
Oh.
so no thanks. But I would likely enjoy it a lot, watching it and shouting. But yeah,
Just egging everybody on.
yeah, but hopefully it doesn't happen reasonably. It's not a good idea, but a part of me would like to see it.
MotoGP fans, do not reenact Green Street. We're not endorsing this. Although we,
Do
we
you,
would enjoy watching it.
yeah, and another thing, a lot of people were getting pretty angry in the comments. I mean, get over it. It was a meme. I mean, obviously, I don't want Marc Marquez to be hurt. I don't want him to miss any action. It was just a meme because action follows consequence. He was the only one who was getting hurt there, really, because Jorge Martin isn't missing a race and Miguel Oliveira isn't missing a race. Like, he's the one who got injured, hurt. Everybody got hurt, but he's the one who's got injured. So, out of the three who deserve the injury the most, it's Marc Marquez. But I don't say that I want Marc Marquez to be injured. It's just a meme. Get over it. I've
Yeah,
done
I want to
worse.
make this point as well before we move on because I saw you got a lot of hate on Instagram, undeservedly so. Guys, it's a meme page. We have fun covering the sport we love. I saw some of these comments underneath. Oh, I'm a VR46 fan and I didn't like it. It's not right. Don't be bullying Mark. Stop hating Mark. Stop saying Mark should be beat up. It's a joke, people. We have fun here. Stop trying to cancel people for having a laugh about something. If we can laugh about it, you can laugh about it. Nearly everybody who follows us, and by the way, of course, thank you all for following Leo and for following the podcast. We love you all. We love doing this because we joke about it and we have a laugh. We're not trying to say Marc Marquez should be attacked, although we'd enjoy the mass fight. We're just having a bit of fun, okay? It's just a laugh. Get over yourselves. The world's serious enough as it is. Let's just try and have some fun from time to time, all right?
I mean, we all know those jokes that you do with your friends and hope that nobody else hears
We
them.
have group
So
chats for a reason.
yeah, it's those kind of stuff. I mean, it happens to be public, but I'm not trying to be a role model there. I'm not trying to do anything. It's an entertainment. A lot of people laughed about it, and apparently some got butthurt. But yeah, it is what it is. Get over it. And I would like to make a quick point. Just because there's a Valentino Rossi fan here doesn't mean that you can't criticize Marc Marquez, because I'm doing the same shit with every other rider, and saying you're just a Rossi fan is not an argument.
Yeah, exactly. Guys, look, I know Leo obviously makes the memes and he's the creative genius behind all of this, but we laugh at every rider equally. We're not here to just attack Marc Marquez, all right? Jorge Lorenzo blocked Leo. Pecco Bagnaia blocked Leo. Do you see where I'm going with this? I think Dennis Onchu blocked him as well.
Nope.
Oh, didn't he? You know
Nope.
what? Shout out Dennis Onchu.
Raul Fernandez.
Raul Fernandez blocked Leo. The point that I'm making is that we can laugh at everybody, even ourselves. I've even laughed at Valentino before for some of the things he's done. You know, not everybody is immune from a laugh or a joke because that's all it is. It's just having a laugh. That's all it is. We're not here to lessen anybody or degrade anybody or humiliate anybody. Maybe Jorge Lorenzo from time to time, but he deserves it. That's different. The point is that we're just having a joke. That's all it is.
I mean, I was making fun of Joel Kelso, and I love the guy. We went to Mallorca last year, met him, did the podcast, and he's been an incredible guy, and he's so friendly. I wish him nothing but the best. But if you do shit like this, you will get memed.
Yeah.
So get over it. It's a meme page, and even Joel liked it. He apparently he thought it was funny. So yeah, I mean, I don't understand how people are so sensitive and if they've never made a cruel joke themselves. But yeah, sometimes we joke about things that we don't actually mean, and that's part of humor. Breaking
Guys,
news.
that's the point of humor. I can't even believe I'm having to explain the theory of comedy to people. It's like, for example, I can't. Maybe you can remember the page because I do want to give them a shout out. I think it's memes about GP, but I'm not too sure. And they made a meme about the Twin Towers, and it's Mark missing Martin and hitting Oliveira. It was funny.
Yeah, and I would say this meme is a little bit more spicy than my meme.
Okay, yeah,
But
that's maybe for Bad MotoGP memes 4, but you see where we're going.
yeah. And I would like to discuss one last thing that I've heard again that Marc Marquez isn't a happy boy at Honda right now. And understandably so, the bike's a piece of shit. And yeah, maybe we discussed it in the season preview. He somehow gets out of his contract and signs with. Apparently, there's an offer from KTM, and apparently there's an offer from Pramac. But again, take this with a pinch of salt. It's just a rumor. It could be total bullshit. It's not confirmed by anybody. So yeah, but maybe your bold prediction will be true. And yeah,
Guys, am I a
could be.
secret Marc Marquez fan in disguise? Who
Yeah.
knows? No, look, honestly, I wouldn't give it too much credence. It's the first race of the season, and like you said, it hasn't been substantiated or confirmed by anybody. But what I will do to basically shit stir and add a little bit of fuel to the fire, do you think Mark's going to be happy seeing Alex Marquez fighting for those race wins? No, he is
Nope.
not. And when he looks at the bike he's doing it with, that's all I'm saying.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, a lot of people see this Alex Marquez to Ducati as kind of a test run, but my understanding is that he signed a bulletproof contract to the end of 2024. So this season he'll be with Honda, next season he'll be with Honda, and there's basically no way out. And personally, it's just my opinion. I don't see why Honda would let him go. I don't see why Honda would let their best rider go out of the contract early, but as we've seen with Maverick Vinales or with Jorge Martin and KTM, you can get out of a contract. It's not impossible. But yeah, I would like to point out this rumor, and more specifically, apparently, like we discussed also in the season preview, Mark doesn't want to be at Pramac. He wants to be at the factory seat. And apparently, there's a possibility that Inea, if he doesn't win the title, which kind of looks likely right now, but it's still the first race of the season only. He's injured, maybe misses 2 races. Pecco won it with 5 DNFs, so everything is possible. But if Inea doesn't win the title, that they move him down to Pramac and Mark slots in at Ducati, which to me is a very, very, I would say, stupid from Ducati if they were to do this. And it's very risky because I think Enea Bastianini over the next 10 years is the better rider.
Yeah.
So, yeah, but this is the rumor. I don't necessarily believe it, but I wanted to point it out. And yeah, I think that Karn Pinot, what's his name? Wait a minute, let me look it up. The manager of Enea Bastianini, Carlo Pernod, or whatever his name
Oh
is.
yeah.
Um,
I think that's him.
yeah, give me a second. Give me a second. I have it in a minute.
But yeah, just while Leo's looking that up, I'll add a little note onto this. Like I said, it's the first race of the season. I wouldn't give too much credence to it.
Yeah, I have it. Carlo Pernod, keine Ahnung. I don't know. But he's been in the paddock for 40 years and he was Rossi's manager. You don't fuck with him. So he
No.
was working very, very hard to get him the factory seat. And I think Pecco and Enea will be factory riders in the future. And also, I think Marc Marquez will be a Honda rider next year because I don't see a scenario where Honda says, okay, here you go. We will sign somebody else.
No, No, I don't either. I mean, Marc Marquez is too valuable to Honda, even if he is injured. Look, you don't pay a guy 25, 30 million euros a year like Honda paid a Mark unless you believe in him and unless he is everything to Honda, which he is. And to be honest with you, the factory Ducati thing, I don't believe either. I think Enea Bastianini and Pecco Bagnaia, that is the perfect pairing for the next decade or more. You already have a champion in Pecco Bagnaia, and you have a rider in Enea who's going to push him to the limit. So I don't see that happening either. I think Mark will probably stay where he is. He won't accept anything less than the factory, and the factory won't accept him. So I think things will stay the way they are.
Yeah, and the way Pecco looked at this weekend was incredible. I
So
mean, we
good.
discussed it. We discussed it after the sprint race on the IG Live. For everybody, we will do this more regularly to discuss the sprint races. We won't discuss them extensively here, but what I will make a quick point there. He looked so incredible, mature in the sprint race. He didn't pick a fight he didn't need to pick, and he rode the perfect race in the main race. He got away pretty early when he overtook Miguel Oliveira. I don't know if it was the first lap or second lap, whatever, but it was pretty early. He got in front and never looked back, and he looks, with Enea injured right now, he looks unbeatable.
Yeah, Paco was just untouchable all weekend. Like you said, he was just perfect. Untouchable, never looked back, never looked out of place. Again, I won't touch on the sprint race too much because IG lives are now for that, where we go over them in depth. But basically, imperious, just we saw how cerebral Pecco is. He was in third or fourth for the first couple of laps, took his opportunity when he had it, never looked behind him. And it was the same story for the main race. Like you said, it was the first two or three laps. He gets past Miguel Oliveira, gets past Maverick Vinales, I should say, and he never looks back again. Just set the pace, was a bit like prime Jorge Lorenzo, just banging out lap after lap after lap after lap. Never looked like slowing down, continued to push the pace, and showed why he's the reigning champion. He was just brilliant from beginning to end all weekend.
Yeah, and the way he was almost playing with Maverick Vinales, because he said after the race that when Vinales came close, he always managed his pace perfectly. Because when Vinales took a little bit of a break to cool his tires down, he took a little bit of a break too and pulled like a solid gap, but wasn't pushing too hard. And then towards the end, he was upping the pace again because he knew that Maverick Vinales will do the same. And he was responding perfectly. He knew what was going on behind him. And it's almost like, the Valentino Rossi testing helmet where it was flipped and he had the eyes at the back of the head. It was almost like Pecco knew exactly what was going on behind him, exactly what was going on in Maverick's head. And we talked about it extensively in the season preview. If Pecco can keep his mind in the right place, he's unbeatable. And he can't allow Enea Bastianini, who we both think is his best, is his closest rival to the title, to fuck with his head. And if he indeed gets like a 50, 60 point lead, whatever, after Argentina, and then Enea Bastianini comes maybe back in America, or even after that, I don't know how serious his injury is. If he has this big of a point buffer, he can accept a second or third place when he needs to and be very, very comfortable with his lead, manage it pretty comfortably. So yeah, I think he is in a perfect situation right now. Perfect bike. Everything is playing out in his favor, with even with the injuries. You hate to say it, but it's good for if you're Pecco Bagnaia that your closest championship contender is out, and it's also good for you that Marc Marquez is out. If you're Pecco Bagnaia, you're living a very, very comfortable life right now. So Yeah, I think that his season is going to be good. I mean, like we did last year, I said it's not overreaction Monday because after the first race last season, everybody thought, oh my God, Ducati is nowhere and they will suck. And I said, calm down, they will figure it out. The same again, I don't think that every race will go the same. But if Pecco can keep his mind in the right place, be calm when he needs to, then everything will be fine for him.
Yeah, couldn't have said it much better, really. I actually want to give a shout out to Neil Hodgson on the BT broadcast because he made a great point. As it was coming towards the end of the race on Sunday, what Ducati have done that is so genius is that they haven't tried to reinvent the wheel this year. They've just built on a solid base that they discovered midway through last year, and they haven't let up from that. They've built a rock solid house from that foundation all the way up. And the thing is, if Pecco's in the right place on that bike this year, he might win every race, or at the very least finish on the podium in every single race this year, because he looks that good. Now, I am going to add a disclaimer. It is Portimao. Everybody's been testing there for the past couple of weeks, so everybody had a great race and they had great pace. But with the form Pecco's in, I don't see anybody getting close. I really, really don't. And look, this is MotoGP. He could crash, he could get injured, something could happen. But in a clean race, one on one, I don't see who beats him at the moment. He just looks majestic.
Yeah, and honestly, when we go to Argentina and, for example, Maverick, who had a brilliant race, for let's pretend for some reason Maverick is very consistent. Their Aprilia isn't as good as Pecco is, and Maverick, from a talent perspective, can beat everybody, but he struggled to put it together. And you could you could kind of bet on that. That let's say Vinales is very very good in Argentina and very good in Austin, you can manage around it because you know, hey, I have first of all I have the sprint races on my side. They do not suit Maverick, and he will likely have a lot of fuck ups because it's Maverick and he's inconsistent. I I refuse to change my opinion on that until I'm proven to be wrong. But yeah, he can live a very comfortable life right now. He has like a 12-point advantage right now over Maverick. So even if Argentina doesn't go his ways, collect the points, do what Fabio did last season, do what Fabio does this season, collect the points, don't fuck it up, and yeah, then you'll be fine. Because there will be tracks where you are unbeatable, and there are more tracks where Pecco is good on than where he's bad on. So his objective is just to keep his mind in the right place, and he will be world champion again.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Pecco has such an envious job because all he has to do is hang in there. That's all he has to do. If there's a race weekend where it's maybe a Le Mans or a Phillip Island where weather conditions don't go his way, or for whatever reason, race setup, the race isn't going his way, whatever's not going his way, all he has to do is be willing to take the second, the third, the fourth place, take the points home with you, and then you're likely going to the next track in which you'll blow everybody else away because the Ducati's so suited to it. He is living really good right now because all he's got to do is just stick in there, mop up the wins where he's going to win, and take the points where he maybe won't win, where maybe even a Fabio Quartararo might win, or a Jorge Martin might win, or an Aprilia might win. All he's got to do is keep his mind clear right in there, and he could just cruise to another title by the end of the year. Like I said, he is living good because he is in the best position right now. This is for certain.
From a talent perspective, I think Maverick Vinales has a very, very good shot on winning the title, even because he's that good if it's his day. And if he can have his day 21 times this year, it's going to be, or like 42 times. It's going to be very difficult for everybody to beat him. But yeah, I think that I would like to see Maverick succeed. Let's put it this way, because he seems to be a very friendly guy. And when he was doing his post race interview on After the Flag, he was asking, "Hey, is Miguel all right?" He gave his insight on how he saw the Marcus crash, and he just seems to be happy at the moment. He seems to be in a good place at the moment at Aprilia. And I hope that he can keep it together because I believe he deserves it. A rider with his capabilities deserves to win a title. in my
Yeah.
opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, with everything he went through with Yamaha, and I really want to applaud Maverick Vinales with this because he's been very open and very transparent about his mental struggles and the dark place he was in with Yamaha and how truly unhappy he was and how he was willing to walk away from it as well. Let's not forget we may not have seen Maverick if it weren't for Aprilia. And like as a rider, there are a few more I'd like to see succeed more than Maverick because he's a great
Aleix,
guy. Sorry,
Aleix, I would like to see Aleix succeed more than
I,
Maverick
I,
because Aleix deserves it.
way to shit on the point I was making, Leo. Thanks. I
Uh,
built up the emotional beginning, and then you just said you like Elish better, so thank you. No, but like I love them both. They're both amazing guys, and I'd love to see both of them win a title. I genuinely would. My problem with Maverick is the problem he's always had, which is consistency. And I know you said it a little bit as a joke, but in all seriousness, you just know Maverick's not going to have his day 21 times this year. He just isn't going to do it. Now, if you were talking about a one off race for the title, rider against rider against rider, I'd put Maverick up there with anybody because on his day, he is blisteringly quick. He is so, so good. The problem is that it's a marathon, not a sprint. And Pecco Bagnaia is the best marathon runner on the grid. He just is. He's fast and he's consistent, and he can put those two things together better than anybody. So, would I love to see it? Absolutely. Will it happen? Unfortunately, until I see otherwise, just no, it won't.
yeah, I can totally see Pecco winning 5 races in a row, but I can't see Maverick or Aleix winning 5 races in a row, you know?
Now, to be
And
fair, to be fair to Elish, he did do a pretty damn good job last year. He won a couple of races and he got a couple of really good podiums.
he won one race.
So it feels like he won more.
No,
Oh
he
yeah,
had
if
a
he hadn't
couple of.
fucked up the early celebration, he probably would have won. Yeah, he won one race, got some really good podiums, but with the MotoGP era we're in now, that's just nowhere near enough.
Yeah, and Ducati has the advantage that a rider like Marco Bezzecchi is at the front. A rider, I mean, I don't think Jorge Martin gives much of a shit about everybody else, but like Marco Bezzecchi won't do anything stupid when it comes to Pecco. And even Enea, if he's out of the championship, he won't be too aggressive like he was last year in Malaysia. He did everything which was reasonable, but he didn't do anything stupid. And yeah, I think that Ducati still has the edge. Marco Bezzecchi had an incredible race. He can be independent rider of the year. I think he's very, very good. Fun fact, the GP22 has never won a race. Pecco Bagnaia was not on the GP22 last year. He had the 21 engine in it, so it was
That's
a 20,
right.
21.5-ish. It wasn't a real 22. And the GP22 was ridden by Marini last year, by Zarco and by Martin. And this season, Marini has it, Bezecchi has it, Digia has it, and
Alex
Alex Marquez
Marquez.
has it. They haven't won a race either. So a real GP22 with a GP22 engine inside has never won a race, which sounds weird, but it is the
Wow.
truth. And yeah, I can see it changing. I see Marco Bezzecchi winning a race, or maybe two, or Luca Marini winning a sprint, or like Alex Marquez maybe too. But like over the season, I think they won't be in the title fight. I think they will kind of help Pecco in a way, and therefore everything will be fine.
Shout out Marco Bezzecchi, by the way. What a race he had. Finishing third, he was phenomenal. Big shout out to Marco Bezzecchi.
Yeah. And if you hear a knocking in the background, I don't know if you hear it. The dog is scratching himself, and it always she always hits like with her elbow or whatever, hits the ground, and it sounds like somebody's knocking. I don't know if you heard it, but just in case you're wondering,
I can't
yeah.
hear anything actually, so you're
Okay,
fine.
okay, perfect. What I want to talk about a little, I mean, we are almost an hour in, so I feel like we should do this quick and dirty. The battle for P4 was excellent. I really enjoyed it. Joan Zarco did a great job towards the end, but yeah, I love to see it. I want to see more of it, and hopefully we get this for a win sometimes. But with the whole arrow thing, like Maverick Vinales, he could have launched an overtake if there were no arrow. But yeah, I still think that with with the arrow, it's difficult to have this for a race victory. Maybe in Phillip Island again, but yeah, I think that it was awesome. I really enjoyed watching it because the race was a bit of a snooze fest towards the middle of the race. So yeah,
Quick and dirty title of the next episode.
yeah,
Yeah, Battle for P4 was brilliant. Miller, Bender, Zarco, and a bunch of other riders were actually in the mix by the end of it. Alish was in it as well, of course. Yeah, just a phenomenal race. Better race than the actual race at the front. Ultimately, Zarco absolute G for pulling the move that he did in the last corner, and yeah, just a brilliant, brilliant battle. The KTMs were great. Alicia Spargo was really good. But Johan Zarco, the balls he had to pull off that move were just unbelievable. Brilliant, brilliant battle.
yeah. My girlfriend came in, opened the window, and now I'm cold. So thanks for nothing. But yeah, I will have to get up in a minute and close it. And yeah, I would like to talk a little bit about Yamaha because Frankie finished last, which is
Ugh.
not good. I mean, he still was 14th because everybody else crashed, but Fabio was an eighth, which is absolutely catastrophic considering that he's rather good around Portimao, and it's one of his better tracks. And yeah, I'm just very, very concerned about Yamaha because I thought maybe they can keep it together towards the beginning of the season where everything is not as developed with the new bikes because they're still sticking with the 22 bike except for the engine. And yeah, I've been proven wrong. I predicted Fabio to be on the podium, but yeah, I think Yamaha is in a very, very bad place right now. I think they sadly they want to get rid of Frankie because he's not delivering. And I think Frankie is a great rider, but who's been put in a terrible situation with Yamaha. And Fabio, more or less the same. Fabio is an incredible rider and still the best rider on the grid, in my opinion. But he's been on a terrible bike. I don't know what the fuck is going on at Yamaha. Why they can't do anything with the 23 Aero, with the 23 chassis. Just the engine seems to be fine. But yeah, it looks very, very bad with Yamaha.
Yeah, Yamaha are in a terrible situation, like you said. Do you want to go close your window and I'll keep going while you're away?
Yeah, I will just close the window. You can talk. I will be right back.
Yeah, no problem. Do what you got to do. So yeah, ladies and gentlemen, as Leo said, Yamaha are just in a terrible situation right now. I mean, you've got two world championship caliber riders in Fabio Quartararo and Frankie Morbidelli, and the bike just isn't delivering for whatever reason. I think it's the aero and chassis issues that Leo mentioned because they seem happy with the engine. I mean, it's like I said in the season preview last week. Fabio was singing the praises of the Yamaha engineers for the work they've done with the engine. So it has to be something else that's wrong. But I'm not gonna beat on Fabio because look, guy's a world champion. To win a world title on that bike is a miracle in its own right. But unfortunately for Frankie, it's just not getting any better. Look, it's the first race of the season. I'm gonna cut him a little bit of slack. But the problem is if he's finishing 14th at a track where he's been testing for a week or two, what the hell's he going to do on the other races where they haven't been testing this season? It's starting to get concerning now with Frankie Morbidelli. It really is. And look, I think as we go further and further into the season, the Jorge Martin rumors might start getting stronger. But if Frankie doesn't buck it up quickly, then his ass is going to be gone, unfortunately. And like I said, I love Frankie, but Yamaha are not going to have any passengers hanging on because they need someone who's going to help Frankie or Fabio with the workload.
Yeah, and when you're Frankie Morbidelli and you finish behind Augusto Fernandez, something is wrong. And you touched
Something's
on,
wrong.
yeah, so, and you touched on Jorge Martin. I've heard a rumor again. It's just a rumor. A lot of rumors this weekend. maybe it's just people jumping into conclusion and talking shit. Maybe there's actually something on with this, but yeah, I made some memes about it that apparently Jorge Martin already signed with Yamaha, and to me, I don't understand. Apparently, he's furious with Ducati that he didn't got the factory seat.
I have
In
heard
my
that.
in my opinion, he doesn't deserve the factory seat when you have Enea Bastianini, who won like 4 races last year. I don't know how you can justify that. I don't know what went on behind the scenes. If he was promised a factory seat and then felt like they kind of did him dirty. I don't know, but yeah, I would swallow my ego at if I was him and stay on the best fucking bike and win sprint races and finish on the podium and live my life rather than being on a Yamaha where Fabio Quartararo, the best rider in the grid. You could argue that maybe it's Marcus, maybe it's Pecco, I don't know. But he's certainly a top three rider. That he can't get into the top five with this shitbox, that all of a sudden you need to do it. And I mean, Jorge Martin could fit the Yamaha, I don't know. But he's a very good qualifier, and so was Fabio until Yamaha decided to fuck it up. But yeah, I think that he maybe can do something on the bike more than Frankie, but I don't think he'll be better than Fabio. And yeah, to me, it's a stupid decision to go to Yamaha just to be a factory rider. And I hope Yamaha will bring in a satellite team for next season. Hopefully, it will not be Valentino Rossi's team because I enjoy those two on the Ducati. Um, but yeah, they need to do something about the bike because it's ridiculous. And I pray for Jorge Martin that he didn't sign this contract.
Yeah, Jorge, if you're somehow watching this, if one of your friends has sent you a clip of us somehow, or if you're watching this on your own, please, in the name of Mother Mary, tell us you haven't signed with Yamaha. Tell us you didn't do it, Jorge, because that would be a very, very dumb decision in your part. Look, we talked about this last week, and I think we even mentioned it on the IG Live as well. I think personally that the title of factory rider is overrated. You know, I mean, even if you're a satellite rider, you're getting the same support pretty much as factory riders get. And you like if you're a Ducati rider, for example, say you're Jorge Martin, if you're on the Pramac bike, it's basically the same bike. You know,
It is the same.
it is the same bike. You've got the same data. You know, you've got the same resources available. Does it really matter if your polo shirt or your leathers are purple, white, and red, or if they're all red? Does it really matter that much? Personally, as a color scheme, I like the Pramac color scheme better, just saying. But does it matter that much? I mean, I don't get it. You're on the best bike on the grid. Why throw that away just to be a co-captain of the SS shitbox? It makes no sense. I would not do that, and I hope for Jorge's sake he hasn't, because that would just be career suicide at this point. That's all it would be. And to do what? To prove a point?
Yeah, I mean, you could. The only reasonable explanation to me is money and ego. He wants to be a factory rider no matter what. Therefore, he goes to Yamaha. And he is a little bit like Cal Crutchlow when he went to Ducati from Yamaha because he wanted to be a factory rider. And if Yamaha is paying solid money, okay, why not? But you're still not going to be the number one rider because it's Fabio. And you're still being, maybe you have a little bit more to say in which direction Yamaha develops, but I think they will still listen more to Fabio. And with Ducati, it's the same. They will listen to Pecco and maybe Enea, but they will do whatever they want, and you have to accept. You can provide data, you can provide some insights on what you like, what you don't like, but at the end of the day, it comes down to what Pecco wants, and at Yamaha, it comes down to what Fabio wants. At Honda, it comes down to what Mark wants. At Aprilia, it comes down to what Aleix wants. Maybe Maverick has a little bit more to say there. And at KTM, it comes down to what Brad Binder wants. So, yeah, you're going to lose either way out to those guys. And why not be on the best bike then and enjoy your life?
Yeah, absolutely. And look, You actually made a great point earlier, and I'll touch on this before we move on. To be so wound up about this, as Jorge Martin apparently is, something must have gone on during those negotiations that we haven't been told about. Because if this was simply a case of, okay, I have Anea, I have Jorge, we're gonna see who gets the factory seat based on performances. Nobody would be reacting this way if that was just the case. Everybody would have accepted that and moved on. I think that now again, I'm only speculating. I want to make that very clear. The only thing I can think of is that certain promises were made and then they were pulled back again from under him. That's the only reason I can think of for why he would be so irate about wanting to be a factory rider, is because he was promised being a factory rider. But I mean, at the end of the day, I don't. I mean, the ego that's on display, I can't believe. You can go to Yamaha, and like you said, you're still not the A side over there. That's still Fabio. You could go to Honda, it's still going to be Mark. No matter where you go, unless it's really desperate, like KTM or, yeah, well, yeah, KTM at this point, maybe you become the A side there. But why not just stick with Ducati? You've won multiple races on this bike. If you're consistent and healthy enough, you'll probably challenge for a title or two. Stay with Pramac, stay with the money, stay with the bike, and ride out a great career. Even if Yamaha are paying you more money, they're not gonna suddenly pull more power out of their ass just because you go there. Fabio wants more power. They can't give it to him. They're not gonna give it to you either. You know, I mean, Leo, is it just me, or is this not making sense to anybody?
Maybe he pulls a Jack Miller and is all of a sudden the number one. So yeah, Jack Miller is, but Brad Binder is injured. Apparently, he has some neck injuries from a crash in Portimao,
Mm-hmm.
which I would like to discuss a little bit later. There have been a lot of crashes and injury. It's been horrible. I don't know
Oh,
if it's just Portimao, if it's the new sprint race format, whatever the fuck what's up there, but something has to change. Yeah, but with KTM, a lot like last season, they had a good start to the season. A little bit unfortunate that Brad Binder is injured, but like with Maverick, I don't believe it until I see it. And if KTM isn't consistent in every race, they won't be competing for anything. And I think it's a classical case of KTM having data because they had a test there and maybe developed something which works on one track but doesn't work on every other track. So yeah, I'm excited for Jack Miller. I'm really happy because I didn't see this coming. I'm like Stevie Wonder, and yeah, I hope for him that KTM can keep it together. I hope that Brad Binder gets what he deserves because Brad Binder is an incredible rider who can win the championship because he's that consistent and that good. He always gets out the maximum of every bike, but yeah, I don't see it with KTM. And honestly, I'm very, very excited if they are a fluke or if Portimao was a fluke or if they are for real. And I think like if Brad Binder is consistently at the front for the next 6 races, then maybe I will believe it.
Chad Bender and Jack Miller. Here we are yet again. Look, I gotta say, I was positively delighted that Jack Miller did what he did on Saturday. He was like that tortoise meme that you normally use of "What is this place?" when he was in the top five. And then on Sunday, him and Brad Bender had a brilliant, brilliant race. They really did. The KTM looked the best I've probably seen it ever. And they both had a great race battling for fourth. I think they finished in P5 and P6, if I'm not wrong. Um,
No, I think
s-
Alex Marquez finished in P5, but I already forgot. Wait a second, I will look it up.
was it P6
Um,
and P7, maybe?
it could be, I don't know. But definitely wasn't fourth, definitely wasn't fifth, and therefore I think it will be sixth and seventh. Yes, Brad Binder finished sixth and Jack Miller finished seventh.
Yeah.
So, oh no, they are sixth and seventh in the championship. I don't know, or no, 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 no. Google is a little bit weird, but yeah, Aleix Espargaro has 11 points. But you know what Google did? They have the race results 1, 2, 3, but have the points at the end. So it says Pecco first with 37 points, and then it comes down to Brad Binder. It says 10 points, and then Jack Miller 15. So I was a little bit confused for a second.
Oh, right. Okay.
But
Okay.
yeah, they finished sixth and seventh, and I think it's a good result considering the circumstances.
Yeah.
But yeah, I won't believe it that they're actually a good bike until I see it for like six races because KTM always have 5 good races, and if it happened to be the first 5 races of the season, okay, fine. But if the sixth race is also good, then I will believe it.
Yeah, I think 6 is the magic number when it comes to KTM. Look, they had a great race. Delighted for them. Love both guys. Think they're both brilliant riders. And look, I'm glad they did really, really well. No one will ever begrudge them success. I certainly won't. But I think it was a fluke, to be honest. I think it was. Like I said, everybody's been testing at Portimao the week before the race, and then the first race is at Portimao. Everybody knows that track like the back of their hand by now, and I think everybody was going to have a good race there that finished. Where this will really be telling is in, Argentina, in Austin, in the next races to come. I mean, look, in Austin, the two KTMs could be 20th and 21st, for all we know, or they could be at the bottom of the grid. It really depends on how they perform in the coming races. I personally am going to go out on a limb and say it was a fluke. I hope I'm wrong because I love Brad Binder and I love Jack Miller. But based on history with KTM, it tells me it was a one off, unless it's raining in Austria and they both stay out in slicks and they end up finishing first and second. But overall, I think it was probably more fluke than anything.
And let's be honest, Brad Binder and Jack Miller deserve it, but KTM doesn't deserve it because they're an absolute shithole. And therefore, I hope we are both right, and they'll be sucking again in a week.
It's such
And
a terrible
yeah,
manufacturer.
yeah, and the whole situation in Portimao was rather interesting, where you get this feeling like the one who will be world champion at the end of the race will the one who won't injure himself or injures himself the least over the course of the season, because the sprint races looked absolutely ridiculous, and even the racing in itself with Marc Marquez, obviously the big incident could have been very, very bad for all 3 riders. Paul Espargaro, the situation on this track is just ridiculous, because apparently Pecco said this, that they are pointing out those safety issues for years now, and they still don't change it to a standard where something didn't where something like Paul Espargaro's incident can happen, which is absolutely ridiculous. I mean, it reminds me a lot about the of the Louis Salom incident, because for everybody who didn't see the video, he high-sided and was going. Paul Espargaro was going first towards the gravel, and then the bike followed. And then he hit those air fences. The bike hit him, jumped up in the or flew up in the air and hit him again. He has like severe trauma. He has a broken jaw. I
Jesus.
think he has a broken vertebra or whatever. But he's conscious. Everything's fine. He'll be back again. But those things are absolutely ridiculous, because in a normal track where there's enough space, you just slide into the gravel, and usually the bike and the rider, they don't collect each other in the gravel. But if you have an air fence, then everybody is slamming, or the bike and you are slamming into it. It's a recipe for disaster, and I don't understand how they could allow this, because they have those grades, and it's like, I can't remember. It's in Formula One, grade A, grade B, or grade one, grade two, and whatever. And in MotoGP, it's like the opposite, I believe. It's like grade one, grade two, and there, or grade A, grade B, whatever. But yeah, let's call it ABC, because you have those grades that you need to achieve as a track for safety standards in order to host a MotoGP race. And because of this, we don't see a MotoGP race in Monaco or at the Nürburgring. It's for those reasons. And if you can pass this test with those safety issues, I don't know what the fuck they're doing. And honestly, if I was a rider, I would seriously consider not racing in those tracks where obviously your health is super MotoGP or motorcycle racing is dangerous in itself. You don't need to push the limits there. And if your health is that much at risk, where you can be collected by your bike in the air fence, yeah, I don't need that.
Yeah, it's completely fucked up, is what it is. And I'm actually going to give another shout out to Simon Patterson because he tweeted this out again earlier. He said, I think the statistic is that going into Rio Hondo in Argentina, 20% of the MotoGP grid is injured, which means 1 in 5 riders on the grid are injured. That is not good. That is not good at all. And like you said, I don't even want to go into it too much because I just hope the guy makes a proper recovery. But that situation with Paul Espargaro, I mean, Jesus Christ, just thinking about it and thinking about what happened, the guy's lucky he wasn't killed. He really, really is lucky that it wasn't even worse than it already is. And then you've got the additional racing, which is just putting more risk really out there. It's a mess. It really is a mess. And really, I can't remember who put it out there, but someone put it out there and they were right. Whoever ends up being the MotoGP champion this year might just be the person who makes it to the end in one piece. That's what we're dealing with here. And look, I hope it gets better as these rounds go on because Portugal was bruising.
Yeah,
Really, really bruising.
yeah, I hope that it will not continue like this. And yeah, I'm a little bit surprised that you're riding Simon Patterson's dick so hard today. Maybe Maddie needs to get jealous.
Bro, I don't ride anyone's dick, all right? I'm just here to do what I do, all right? It's a fair statistic, I mean, the fact that 1 in 5 riders are injured is something that is worthy of being talked about. And like you said, I'm saying it because of the old penalty thing, It's topical discussion, Leo. If you want to bring someone else's statistics into it, you're welcome to do that. I'm just here to do my thing.
Of course. For example, everything motor racing. Declan put up a good post where he lists all the injuries of Moto 3, Moto 2, and MotoGP. And I was thinking about doing something similar with the picture of the grid where I cross out everybody who misses a race because of an injury, and continue this for an extensive period of time. And let's see who makes it through the season without any injuries. But yeah, I'm aiming at like 1.5 hours always for a podcast, and I would like to discuss Moto 3 and Moto 2. So Moto 2 should be fairly quickly, like the Ducati manufacturer title thing at last episode. Pedro is better than everybody, faster than everybody. He's the best in the class. He showed it. He was incredible. So yeah, what did you make out of his performance?
Yeah, I mean, just go material pretty much. Pedro Acosta is probably the best Moto 2 rider I've ever seen in my life. Better than Raul Fernandez, the moral champion, better than everybody else. To quote Tina Turner, he is simply the best, better than all the rest. That's all I got to say. He joined our IG Live. He won the race by a mile. If that doesn't tell you what's going on, nothing ever will. Next question.
Maybe that's the secret. We need to do more IG lives with Pedro, and therefore he wins every race. Maybe it's some kind of a
Remy,
good
join
scam.
the IG Lives. We need you back.
Yeah, yeah. As were discussing people who deserve to be MotoGP World Champion, I would put Remy up there because he's a
Yes.
sweetheart. He's a
Yes,
sweetheart,
absolutely. Remy and
and
Wayne Gardner. Let's have it.
yeah, and with regarding Pedro, I was very impressed on how consistently at the top he was over the whole weekend. Because
Yeah.
with Pedro, it's always a little bit not sketchy, but it's a little bit difficult for him to be consistently on the front row. In qualifying, that was maybe his weakness last year, apart from the inconsistency. But he was a rookie, so everything's fine. But he seemed to figure out qualifying. He was incredible in setting a pace where nobody could touch him. I mean, Aaron Canet tried so hard in the first part of the race to overtake him because, like, if I see this, Aaron Canet sees it. You need to break Pedro's rhythm, otherwise he's gone. And he simply couldn't. He tried so hard. He was so close, but never could pull it off. And Pedro always had this this margin over Aaron Canet where he couldn't do anything without being reckless, you know?
Yeah, Pedro did a Pecco. That's what he did. He just got in front, kept the distance. Every time Aaron Canet looked like he was coming in close, just pushed on again and stretched it out. It was just a brilliant, brilliant performance. I mean, it's what I've come to expect from Pedro Acosta, but it still amazes me every time I see it because that kid is riding like a MotoGP world champion, getting in front, setting the pace, lap after lap after lap after lap. Aaron Canet, I could see Aaron Canet getting frustrated, and I can understand that, but he just tried to close the gap. Pedro would just nudge in front, tried to close the gap again. Pedro just pushes out in front again. Untouchable all weekend for the most part, and just brilliant. Really, really
Yeah.
brilliant stuff from Pedro Acosta.
And Pedro seems to have a straight line speed where nobody else could touch him on the straight, which is
He's
sweet
so good on the straight.
because everybody has the same bike, everybody has the same tires, everything's the same. And Pedro still, like in Aragon last year, still is so incredibly fast on the straight. I don't know if it's because he's a midget, but yeah, everything else I can't explain because either Red Bull KTM Ayo have some kind of trick up their sleeves where Aki is throwing stones at the other riders on the straight, or Pedro's just more aerodynamic and knows how to get not even the power down after the corner because Aaron Canet was closing at the exit of the last corner, but then Pedro pulled away. I can't explain how he does it, except that he's just lighter, more aerodynamic, and therefore can be faster on the straight.
Yeah, another theory for the season: Aki Ayo sabotaging the rest of the Moto Two paddock.
I don't know
No,
if
no, I'm gonna give another shout out, and I'm not dick writing. I'm just giving people credit. I don't believe in copying other people's theories. Another shout out to Neil Hodgson at BT, because he made a great point about Pedro, and this is something else that I've seen a big improvement in this season already. When Pedro takes a corner, he's taking a MotoGP approach, and that he attacks the corner like a V shape. He approaches it at that sharp angle and fires back out again. One thing he was doing last year and even in Moto 3 was that he was looping into the corners so wildly that sometimes he would just loop in too wildly, overshoot it, and let other people through. He's tightened up the cornering so much that I think it's feeding into the aerodynamic point that you made. Because he's taken the corners so sharp, he knows when to get in, when to get out. And he's doing that so seamlessly in every lap that he's making himself untouchable. Whenever guys like Aaron Canet maybe make a mistake or they take a corner very slightly too hard, Pedro's there, in and out, in and out, in and out in every corner. And by the end, you just can't catch him. So the maturity for a kid who's like 18 to be doing this against other more experienced riders, it's just unbelievable.
Yeah, and I've talked to somebody from his team last year, and Pedro always was a motherfucker on the brakes. He
Yeah.
was, when you remember Moto 3, he overtook Jaume Masia and Dennis Enchu in Jerez in one corner, both on the brakes after the straight, which was incredible. He was always so good on the corners, but last year what he was still missing was this corner speed where you just let the bike roll a little bit and not hard braking and accelerating out, more the flowing type of corners. This was where he apparently had some struggles, and what it looks like now that he figured out how to do it, and now he's a complete rider. Because if you can't overtake somebody on a straight, and if you can't overtake somebody on a break, those are like the two main things where you overtake somebody, then you have a pretty hard time. And now if he figured the last part out, then you can't beat him at every point at the track. So yeah, I don't see how anything changes this season, because I would like to jump into a conclusion right now and say Pedro will be world champion, except something horrible happens to him. Um, the way he looked was incredible, and I don't see anybody matching him for this season. Like Albert Arenas could be a threat towards the end, but you saw it with Remy, you saw it with Augusto Fernandez. They all they took it took a little bit of time to get adjusted to the team, and then be on this high level where they wipe the floor with everybody. I feel like with Remy, it kind of clicked in Mugello, and with Augusto Fernandez, I believe it clicked in Le Mans. But if Pedro can be this good from the beginning and then Albert Arenas clicks like in Catalonia, let's say, or whatever, and he is already so far behind Pedro, then it's good night, Irene.
Yeah. And the thing is, just to add on to that point, even if another rider in the Moto 2 paddock does click, I still don't see who's better than Pedro on his best day, because we've seen what we've seen from Pedro isn't even 70% of what Pedro can do. Because what we've seen with Pedro is when he gets in front, he can't be touched. And even whenever Pedro is in a dogfight, I think you'll see another level to his game as well, because I think he's capable of so much that maybe he undersells himself by being so good sometimes, if you know what I mean. But I think with Pedro, I genuinely think, and it's ridiculous to call something after the first race, it's mental, but I think it's his to lose. I think he's that good that I don't see who's better.
Yeah, and you saw the difference between Pedro, a generational talent, and Eunchu in Moto
Yeah.
3, because Pedro would have won that motherfucker.
Yeah.
Especially with the slow pace the Moto 3 guys were running at the front. I mean, he did it in Doha, where he raced the week before but had no previous experience, and he was closing the gap. And Pedro is such a motherfucker on Sundays. He's so good on the brakes. His racecraft is really amazing. And if he can level up his game in the weaker departments like qualifying, or like if he can be complete over the whole lap, where he's good on the brakes, good on the straights, good at the exit of corner, good changing directions, good in slow corners, good in fast corners. And with his racecraft, the way he played with the Moto 3 competition during a race was absolutely insane. And yeah, you saw it with Eunchu. That's the difference between a generational rider and a good talent.
Yeah. I mean, there's not much more that you can add on to that. I mean, I don't want to keep singing Pedro's praises because we do that a lot and we do have to talk about everybody else. But if Pedro fulfills his potential, he could be the best talent since Marc Marquez. I really, really think he could be. And if he wins the Moto3 title and Moto2 title, then he's firmly on that trajectory anyway. But to talk about Moto3 as well, I mean, like you said, Dennis Onchu threw it away, unfortunately. He was in a really good position. And that's what I was thinking when I was watching that. WWPAD, what would Pedro Acosta do? Pedro Acosta would have won. And that's the difference between Pedro Acosta and someone like Dennis Onchu, unfortunately. Pedro just has that edge that other riders don't. And that's really all you can say.
Yeah, I believe Dennis Eunchu was at times lapping 2 seconds faster than the leaders, because the pace at the front was really slow, and which was kind of weird, because I felt like Olgado was in a position a couple of times where he could set the pace as he wanted to, and yeah, it was still a little bit slow, but I mean, he delivered. Congratulations for his first victory. He didn't deserve this whack by Joel Kelso afterwards, and Diogo Moreira as well, first podium. He finished in third, and I gotta give a shout out to David Munoz, because he was aggressive, yes, but he wasn't ridiculous, and he wasn't reckless, which is, I guess, an improvement. But yeah, those three delivered. I'm a little bit disappointed in Sasaki, if you could say so, but it's still a long season. Moto 3 was the best race. It was usually chaotic, or chaotic as usual. But yeah, I think that Moto 3 will be very interesting over the course of the season.
Yeah, of course. And look, Moto 3 is always interesting over the course of any season, but especially now with some of the riders that are in there and some of the riders that have been in there, it's going to get fascinating over the course of the season. And this is just the first race. It's like we said in our preview episode last week, on any given weekend, pretty much 50% of the grid could win a race, even if they start at the back. So, I mean, I wouldn't write anything off. It's a long, long season, and it's the longest season in Moto 3. So, strap in because everything's going to happen, and I'm very excited to see the way it unfolds.
Do you believe me now that Jose Antonio Reda will win a race?
Yes. Yes, I absolutely do. I believed you before, but I especially believe you now.
Yeah, and lastly, after the race, Joel Kelso crashed into Daniel Algado. And quick point to Daniel Algado, I believe he's on a mission to make KTM regret that they threw him out of Tech 3 and threw him out of Ayo and put him into Tech 3. But yeah, I think that Olgado's on a mission to prove everybody wrong. And I think he's on a mission to show KTM that they did a massive mistake, and maybe it will bite them in the ass further down the way. But yeah, Joel Kelso doesn't deserve this. I mean, he was hit last year in the warm up by another bike after, I believe, after the warm up completed in Jerez. Then he was wiped out by Adrian Fernandez, injured himself in both of these incidents where he had nothing to do with the incident. Then, I mean, you could argue he should have known a little bit better, but it looked like he was pulling the tear off away from his helmet, and therefore didn't look straight on. I guess he learned his lesson right now. But he slammed into the back of Olgado and broke his ankle. He'll be out for at least 2 races, I believe, which is absolutely horrible to see. He had such a great race. He was leading the race, finishing in the top 10. Everything was going according to plan. It seemed a little bit like he was lacking some straight line speed because I thought, oh, Peanut is here. Because I thought that he was doing good, but still couldn't overtake those guys on the straight where everybody was swarming out. And she's here right now. Hello, come here. I'm hanging the headphones. Come here. You want to say hello?
Peanut's back.
Hello.
Peanut, what's going on?
Yeah. I don't think that Joel Kelso deserves anything. I don't know if he what he was doing in his previous life to deserve this kind of bad luck. But yeah, I'm hoping he will come back stronger. And yeah, I don't
That,
know what to say.
that would be great bad MotoGP merch. Jesus hates Joel Kelso.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure, but I guess if he could figure out his straight line speed, which is weird because he's also a midget, so I would assume that he's he's very aerodynamic. But yeah, he's not even not even 1 meter 70. He's like in a 1 meter 60, so he's pretty tiny. But I guess yeah, I mean, I hope that he comes back. He had such an incredible race. I was a little bit forgetting where I was going because of the dogs, but yeah, he had a great start to the season. I hope he can bounce back from it and be where he left off in Europe. So yeah, I'm very very excited to see what his future holds in Moto3 because he has all the potential in the world to win a race and be consistently at the front. I think he's still lacking a little bit of that raw pace like Jose Antonio Reda has or like Daniel Algado has. But I think on his day he can be at the front, be on a podium this season, and yeah, I'm just hoping that he stays injury free and does the things he did in Junior GP because he was at times amazing.
Yeah, of course. As long as he doesn't bounce back into the back of Danny Holgado again, he should be fine. No, I mean, I think you're right. I think Danny Holgado is just on a rampage against KTM at the moment, which is brilliant to see. And as for Joel Kelso, brilliant. I was so happy for him with how quick he was running. I'd love to see him win a race this year because I think he deserves this. And yeah, I think Moto 3 is shaping up very nicely this year.
Yeah, and I'm very excited for the GP in Argentina, where a lot of chaos will occur because nobody tested there. So I think it's will be a little bit different. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it. And yeah, I would like to finish off right now because girlfriend is making dinner and it's getting a little bit late here.
Yep.
Okay, thank you very much, Keelan, and talk to you after Argentina.
Absolutely. And thank you, everybody, as well, for watching. We look forward to coming to you live next Saturday on Instagram to review the sprint race. Thank you very much once
Perfect.
again.
Goodbye.